So we're ready to launch for the One Faith of Original Christianity, Session 1b, titled Pistis in the Gospels. In order to separate the word pistis into its different meanings, we're going to need to look at all of its occurrences. Now, this will take some time, but it will be rewarding. Furthermore, when we're done, there will be no ambiguity about this word. The logical place is to begin with pistis in the Gospels. However, there's a very important distinction which we must recognize. The Gospels record a time, quote unquote, before faith came, as we discovered in Galatians. So, the pistis in the Gospels cannot be the pistis that we are seeking, because all of those occurrences were referring to a time before faith came. But we still have to cover it, because we need to understand what pistis can be. So, the proper translation of pistis cannot be, quote-unquote, faith in the Gospels. It just cannot be, because that was before faith came. We have to accept it must be a different definition. We're also going to use the signpost word study method. Now, that name, signpost, comes from a quote in the Power for Abundant Living class, because if the word interprets itself, there have to be signposts to guide us. The first occurrence of pistis in the Gospels is in Matthew chapter 8, verse 10. However, when I do word studies, I don't just look at the verse. I look at the whole paragraph around the verse. Now, you'll understand why soon. So, we'll begin in Matthew chapter 8, verse 5. When Jesus was entered into Capernaum, there came unto him a centurion, beseeching him, and saying, Lord, my servant lies at home sick of the palsy, grievously tormented. And Jesus said unto him, I will come and heal him. The centurion answered and said, Lord, I'm not worthy that you should come under my roof, but speak the word only, and my servant shall be healed. For I am a man under authority, having soldiers under me, and I say to this man, go, and he goes, and another, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard it, he marveled, and said to them that followed, Verily I say to you, I have not found so great pistis, no, not in Israel. There's the word faith right there in King James. And I say to you that many shall come from the east and west, and shall sit down with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, but the children of the kingdom shall be cast out into outer darkness, and there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Verse 13, And Jesus said to the centurion, Go your way, as you have believed, pistuo, be it unto thee according to that. So be it unto thee. And his servant was healed in the self same hour. This is the first occurrence of pistis, but it is before faith came. So it can't be faith, it has to be some other meaning. The use of pistis here involves one incident, the centurion's servant, not something in general. It was affirmed by the centurion's words. His believing was shown by his speech. It also had a modifier. Jesus called it great faith. The word great is tosutos, which is a combination of tosos, so much, and hutos, this or that, which means so much in this case or in that case. That's what tosutos means. So great, so much in this case or that case. It is a word dealing with quantity. Now, so what I want to do is label these columns in the grid. The first column to the far left is reference. So write reference at the top. Then the second column, I want you to put the word before as the column heading. Before. All right? The third column is individual. Individual. The fourth column is pistuo. Pisteuo. Okay? And then the fifth column is speech. And then the sixth column is quantity. Now, these are the signposts that we have seen so far for this word pistis. So, the reference is going to be Matthew 8:10. So I abbreviate MT 8:10. I'm going to write that in the first square in the grid that's underneath the word reference on row number 1 at the top in the far upper left corner, right? Then under before, this is before faith came. I'm going to put an X there. Yes, it is before faith came. Then, this is an individual incident. It's not something in general. So, this was a specific prayer, a specific need. So, I'm going to put an X under individual. Then, in the pistuo column, there is an occurrence of the word pistuo that occurs in proximity to the word pistis in the same context. See, that's why I don't just look at the verse. I look at the whole paragraph. And there is pistuo that occurs very close to pistis. So I'm going to put an X in pistuo. Then, the centurion spoke to Jesus, and he spoke in words that were assured by his believing. So this pistis that Jesus saw in him that was so great was indicated by the centurion's speech. So I'm going to put an X in speech. And then under quantity, Jesus said, I have not seen so great pistis. So I'm going to write the word great in the quantity box. Okay, great. So across row number 1, I'm going to have Matthew 8:10, 4 X's in the next 4 boxes, and then great is under quantity. Yeah, you all with me? So that's how we're going to list our findings here, and they are going to show us the patterns of this word and show us what the meaning of pistis must be in every case where they have these things occur. Pistis cannot be faith. It has to be something different. And in this case, Jesus said to the centurion, as you have believed, so be it unto you. So, the word, of all the different options that are possible in the lexicons for the word pistis, the one that fits this situation is belief or believing. All right? So this is the pattern that occurs with pistis when it means belief or believing. It's before faith came. It's regarding an individual event. The word pistuo may be used in close proximity to it. It is indicated by the believer's speech, and it could be something that is in quantity, great or small. All right, you see how we're doing this? So, that's how I do this. So, that's the first occurrence of pistis. And also, it is the first occurrence in verse 13 of pistuo. Now, isn't that remarkable? So we have a common first occurrence of those two words that we're studying, and we're all in the same verse, the same paragraph. So this tells us this is a fundamental explanation of pistis and pistuo. All right? It's for a certain need to be done. It's indicated by words. Okay? Now, let's go and do the next one. The next one occurs in Matthew chapter 9. All right? So, Matthew chapter 9, verse 1. Matthew chapter 9. As he entered into a ship and passed over, and came to his own city, and behold, they brought to him a man sick of the palsy, lying on a bed. And Jesus, seeing their faith, there it is, in verse 9:2, Matthew 9:2 is the word faith. Jesus, seeing their faith, said unto the sick of the palsy, Son, be of good cheer, thy sins be forgiven thee. And behold, certain of the scribes said within themselves, This man blasphemes. And Jesus, knowing their thoughts, said, Why do you think evil in your hearts? For whither is it easier to say, Your sins be forgiven thee, or to say, Arise and walk? But that you may know that the Son of Man has power on earth to forgive sins. Then he said to the sick of the palsy, Arise, take up your bed, and go to your house. And he rose and departed to his house. And when the multitude saw it, they marveled and glorified God, which had given such power unto men. So now we're going to fill out the second row. So under reference, I'm going to put MT 9:2, Matthew 9:2. Then in the before column, in row 2, in that cell there, that square, I'm going to put an X in before, because this is before faith came. This is an individual situation. The man was sick of the palsy. So I'm going to put an X under individual. Now, there is no occurrence of the word pistuo in this context. So I'm going to leave the box under pistuo, row 2, blank. But I am going to put an X under speech, because Jesus believed with the man and Jesus spoke. So Jesus showed his believing by speaking. All right? Okay, that's how that one works. So this one also has enough of these traits. It's before faith came. It was shown by speech. It was an individual situation, that this one also fits that pattern sufficiently enough. So this occurrence of pistis means belief or believing, right? So now the next one. The next one is Matthew 9, and in verse 20 through 22. Matthew chapter 9, verse 20 through 22. And behold, a woman which was diseased with an issue of blood 12 years came behind him and touched the hem of his garment. For she said within herself, If I may but touch his garment, I shall be whole. But Jesus turned him about, and when he saw her, he said, Daughter, be of good comfort, thy faith, pistis, hath made thee whole. And the woman was whole from that hour. So now, we're going to fill out the third line. And this will be MT 9, and verse 22. All right? So then I'm going to put an X in the before column for row 3. This is before faith came. I'm going to put an X in the individual column because this was an answer to an individual need. She had this issue of blood. All right? Now, there is no occurrence of pistuo in this instance, so I'm going to leave that blank. But Jesus spoke to her, so there was speech there. All right? But also, she did action, which was based upon her believing, because she had this issue of blood. You can imagine how sick she was, and yet she had to push her way through the crowd to get to Jesus and to touch him. So that's another trait. And also, now I'm thinking back so far, we've done 3 occurrences of pistis. Well, the people who brought that man with the palsy to Jesus also were believing, weren't they? And even though it doesn't record them speaking to Jesus about the man, they took action. They carried him to Jesus. All right? So this is another column. So I'm going to make the next column. So across the top it's reference, before, individual, pistuo, speech, quantity. I'm going to make another column heading action. They took action. And in Matthew chapter 9, verse 2, I'm going to put an X in row 2 under action. See, when you do this, now I gave you these column headings because I've done this word study before. But as you do the word study, during the first few occurrences, you may have to go back and forth until you pick up all of the traits that are in common. See, so what we're doing now, we went back a step to Matthew 9:2, and they took action. So I'm going to put an X in the action column. And then under Matthew 9:22, I'm going to put an X under the action column as well, because she touched the hem of his garment. Okay? But now, this is where, when you do your study, you're going to be bringing together all of your knowledge as you read each section, because you have to be thinking analytically when you do this. Now, we were not taught how to think analytically much in school. We were just encouraged to memorize stuff, and we were tested on our ability to memorize and regurgitate information. We weren't tested as much on our understanding of it. So that's why many students are not taught how to think analytically. But it is easy. All you have to do is ask yourself all those little questions. Who, what, when, where, why, how. You just answer those questions. So, who? It was the woman. What? She was healed of an issue of blood. Where? She was in the crowd. Why? Well, she needed to be healed. How? Now, this is important. She said within herself, if I may touch the garment, I shall be whole. So there's speech there too, right? So there's speech. The woman had speech, and Jesus had speech. So I'm going to put a 2 by the X, or put 2 X's in the speech column, because there's 2 instances of speech being mentioned. All right? And then also, she said within herself. Now, this is where I just believe God for him to nudge me, for him to poke me when there's something there. And what's really interesting is that this word said is in the Greek imperfect tense. which means continuous action or repeated action in the past. And boy, is that vivid when it comes to this, because that woman was repeating in herself, if I may touch the hem of his garment, I shall be whole. If I may touch the hem of his garment, I shall be whole. If I may touch the hem of his garment, I shall be whole. That is fascinating, isn't it? This is a technique of believing, isn't it? Yes. So, I am also going to make another column. The last column, I'm going to label it mental. In other words, they took action. That was physical action. They spoke. That was something in the five senses realm that they did. But also something dealing with belief and believing was they did something mentally. Okay? So, I am going to put repeated under mental here. Okay? The woman was repeating in her mind, mentally, if I may touch the hem of his garment, I shall be whole. So now I added another column. So now I'm going to go back and think through Matthew 8:10 with the centurion. Was there anything mental going on there? Well, I think there was, because the centurion said to Jesus, I tell men to come and they come, and I tell men to go and they go, and I tell my servant to do this and he does it. So that's really logical thinking, isn't it? So that man, the centurion, concluded through his logic that Jesus could do the same thing with his word. So I'm going to write logic in mental in that column in row 1. Logic. Logic. Now, but see, this logical thing that he went through, the word logic does not occur in the text, but it is implied that he did it. So I'm going to put the word logic in parenthesis. That's my indicator that it's implied. Okay? So the woman said within herself, that's not implied, because that's the Greek imperfect tense. She repeated over and over and over. So that's literal. So that's that's row number 3. See, this is how you do this. You think things through. You make sure that you're alert. You're not fall asleep at the switch. And you ask yourself the little questions. You look at everything that's there, every detail. For some of you, if you have an interlinear Bible, Barry's interlinear, you can look at it because you can see a lot of things that ordinarily you might not be able to see in English. And of course, as your vocabulary of Greek expands, you'll see the Greek words. You'll see pletho. You'll see plerao. You'll see logos. You'll see words that you recognize. And often, that will help you. And if you don't have a Barry's interlinear, you can get that for free on archive.org. You can download it from archive.org. It's not in copyright. It's perfectly legal to download a PDF file. I have gigabytes. My theological library that I've got, about 1/3 of it now, I have in PDF files. That's why I like King James, because there's more reference books on it than any other version. And also you can do it for free. I know there are computer study programs that are out there, but some of them are kind of costly, and I don't want to force people to spend hundreds of dollars and get a computer if they're not that kind of a person. So that's why I'm teaching you how to do it with the books. So now we're going to get to the next one. Matthew chapter 9 in verse 27 through 30. Matthew chapter 9 verse 27 through 30 is the next occurrence. All right. And when Jesus departed thence, 2 blind men followed him, crying and saying, Thou Son of David, have mercy on us. And when he was come into the house, the blind man came to him. And Jesus said unto them, Believe ye that I am able to do this? They said, Yes, Lord. Then he touched their eyes, saying, According to your pistis be it unto you. And their eyes were opened, and Jesus straitly charged them, saying, See that no man know it. Now, isn't this fascinating? That now we know what to look for. We're seeing these indicators in every context, right? So, the 4th row, we're going to put Matthew 9, verse 29 is the word pistis. And so I'm going to put an X in the before column. This is before faith came. I'm going to put an X in the individual column. It was an individual event. They were blind. They were praying for healing. Then, in the pisteuo column, the word pisteuo occurs in close proximity in the verse before pistis, in verse 28. So I'm going to put an X in the pisteuo column. Then, in the speech column, Jesus asked them, do you believe I'm able to do this? And they said, yes. So they responded with speech. I'm going to put an X in the speech column. All right? Then, quantity. There's no quantity mentioned in the context, so I'm going to leave that blank. In the action column, Jesus touched their eyes. He took action. He believed. So I can put an X there. Do you see how this works? So what this is showing, these are the signposts for pistis when it means belief or believing. All right? This is the signpost method. Next one, Matthew 15:21. We just have to go through all of these. I'm going to take you through it with my thinking, and then when you listen to this again, you can go over it again until you understand how this works. It's not difficult. It's a lot of fun. You're going to get into the Word. You're going to see things. All right? Matthew 15:21 is the next section, and verse 28 has the word pistis in it. So we're going to get ultimately to verse 28, but we're going to get a running start by starting in verse 21. So, then Jesus went thence, Matthew 15:21, and departed into the coast of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coasts, and cried unto him, saying, Have mercy on me, O Lord, thou Son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with the devil. But he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and besought him, saying, Send her away, for she cries after us. But he answered and said, I am not sent but to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Then came she and worshipped him, saying, Lord, help me. But he answered and said, It's not adequate meat to take the children's bread and to cast it to the dogs. And she said, Truth, Lord. Yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from the master's table. And then Jesus answered and said unto her, O woman, great is your faith. Be it unto thee even as thou wilt. And her daughter was made whole from that very hour. Now see, after we've done a few of these traits are coming out and kicking you in the shin. Right? You're seeing them right there. All these common traits, when faith is translated with pistis, is translated belief or believing. So, this is the 5th row. All right? So, it'll be Matthew 15:28. And I'm going to put an X in the before column. It's before faith came. I'm put an X in the individual column. This is an individual need, the daughter. Okay? And now, it does not have an occurrence of the word pistuo there in the context, so I'm going to leave that blank. But the woman spoke to him, right? And Jesus answered and spoke to her. So I'm going to put two X's, one for the woman and one for Jesus, right? Then in the quantity column, Jesus said in verse 28, great is your faith. So I'm going to write great in there. Now see, this quantity column is important because faith in the New Testament, the spiritual kind of faith, is something that everyone has the same amount of it. They've obtained it, like in 1 Peter 1:1, and they've been dealt it, like in Romans 12:3. So how could you have greater or lesser of it? See, so this is a factor that differentiates this kind of pistis from the other. So that's why I have this column for quantity. Then, action. Did she take action? Well, I think she certainly did, because she was turned down by the apostles and she persisted, right? So I'm going to put an X in the action. And then in the mental category, I'm going to put in persisted in parenthesis, because she certainly did, because she was a Gentile. That's why the apostles tried to get rid of her. That's why Jesus turned her down initially, because he was only sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Okay? But she persisted. And she even, when Jesus said, it's not adequate to take the children's meat and give it to the dogs, and she said, well, the dogs eat of the crumbs that fall from their master's table. Do you see that? She was spunky. And that's part of believing. If you first don't get it, do you give up? No. See, this is a lesson. As we do this, we're going to see all kinds of traits of genuine believing. And this is one of them. Persist. You just keep on giving. You keep on getting it at it. You keep on doing it. You keep on trying until you get it. It's like, ask and it shall be given to you. Seek and you shall find. Knock and it shall be open to you. All of those words are present tense. Ask, seek, and knock. So you just keep knocking until you knock the door down. Just keep at it. Don't give up. See, sometimes people give up when they've tried and tried and tried. And many of those cases, the need is something that in their environment, they keep exposing themselves to it. And when you're in that kind of a situation, it's especially difficult to see the light, because you're surrounded by this situation all the time. And often it's like you keep getting reinfected in a way with it. Well, just keep seeking, keep knocking. And then as you do so, it's a lot easier to steer the car when it's moving than when it's standing still. And God will guide you to where you get the answer. And that epiphany will happen. And all of a sudden, it'll be like a head-slapping moment. Oh, I know what I need to do. See? So just keep seeking, keep knocking, keep asking. So persistence is a great principle when it comes to believing. And that's in the mental category. Do you see? Wow. There's so much to learn when you do this. When you do word studies, you are going to learn the word in depth. This is how to do it. This is exactly how I got to be the way I am. I have worn out 2 Young's Concordances. I've worn the covers off of 2 Young's Concordances in my Bible study career. And that's what I did. Every teaching that I went to, I would take notes, Then afterwards, I would go to my Young's Concordance, and my teachers told me, don't believe it because we say so. Make it your own. And so that's what I did. I looked at Young's Concordance. I found out other verses that talked about the same subject. I looked at how Young's Concordance gave a better translation in some instances and helped me understand the verse. And so then after a while, I had come to know the word in depth by doing the word studies, and people would come up to me and ask me questions, and I'd answer the question. But then came the second question. The follow-up question's always more difficult than the first one. And the follow-up question usually is a more practical kind of situation that people ask. And I was able to answer those too, because I had done all of this word study and worked the word and seen those principles, like the persistence, like the repeating, like the logic that the centurion had. He thought it through, see? And that taught me how to believe, and it taught me how to work the word, and it taught me how to teach others how to do the same. Wow. Matthew 17. Matthew 17 is the next occurrence. Verse 20 has the word of pistis in it. Matthew 17, we'll start with verse 19. Matthew 17:19. Then came the disciples to Jesus apart and said, why could not we cast him out? And Jesus said to them, because of your unbelief, apistia. For verily I say unto you, if you have pistis as a grain of mustard seed, you shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you. So, here in the next row, I'm going to put Matthew 17:20. All right? Then, in the before column, I'm going to put an X. This is before faith came. Then, I'm going to put an X in the individual column. This is an individual circumstance. This was the child that had epilepsy. All right? It was a need. Then, in the pisteuo column, there's no occurrence of believe there in this one. Then, in the speech column, Jesus said, if you say unto this mountain, remove hence. All right? So, speech, there's an X there. Then, Jesus said to them, because of your unbelief. Well, that's a quantity of no belief, right? So, in the quantity column, I'm going to put unbelief. There is none. Okay? Now, also he said to them, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed. Well, that actually is also a kind of quantity, because the mustard seed is small, right? So there in that column, I'm also going to put mustard seed in the quantity column because it's so tiny. However, the tininess of the mustard seed is not being criticized by Jesus. It is being presented as something positive, right? So, see, we're thinking this through. The tininess of the mustard seed was not referring to its size, because he speaks of it in a positive sense. It's speaking to the power that is in the mustard seed, because the mustard seed will grow this huge plant. So the tininess of the seed, the genuineness of the vitality that's in it, is what Jesus was referring to. See, so this is the literature of eternity. This is how it works. Now, if we really wanted To be thorough, we would also have to do a word study on unbelief, because it's the opposite of believing. Then there's two words for unbelief, apistia and apatheia. Okay? Now I know this will add to the workload, but we ought not to be lazy. See? Thinking analytically requires a structured process to make sure we ask all the questions: who, what, when, where, why, then, how, all that. We need to be thorough, because this is the literature of eternity. And those who are hungry for truth, who put out the effort to learn, they are going to be rewarded. And it's often at these junctures, when we are looking at the details and when related concepts are found, that our learning expands the most. We're seeing biblical relationships. We're seeing firsthand evidence. Now, often I will see stuff that corroborates other findings and other teachings. Oh, here's another one. Oh, here's another one. See? And so I'll put notes in my Bible, or I'll write myself notes so I can put together the other teachings and have more corroboration. See? Now, but if such a thing as unbelief or unbelieving exists, is that unfaith? No. See? So the word pistis here in this verse has to be belief or believing. See? This is the process. We look for the traits. We make sure we read what is written. We make sure we understand it. We don't skim over it. We let it speak to us. Well, that's the word interpreting itself right there where it is written in the verse. See? And we're also gathering meaning from the whole context. We're building up a concurrence of instances where the concept has been explained before by doing a word study. This is the nuts and bolts of in the verse, in the context, used before, that we're doing right now. Matthew 21 is the next occurrence. Matthew 21, all right. In verse 21 has the word pistis, but we'll get started by looking at Matthew 21, verse 18. Now, in the morning, as he returned into the city, he hungered, and when he saw a fig tree in the way, he came to it and found nothing thereon, but leaves only. And he said unto it, Let no fruit grow on thee henceforward forever. And immediately the fig tree withered away. And when his disciples saw it, they marveled, saying, How soon is the fig tree withered away? Jesus answered and said to them, Verily I say to you, if you have pistis, and doubt not, you shall not only do this, which is done to the fig tree, but also if you say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, it shall be done. And all things, whatsoever you shall ask in prayer, believing, you shall receive. So, see, I know some of you are saying, oh, there's all those traits, right? So here is the next row. I'm going to put in Matthew 21:21. Okay. Put an X in the before column. It's before faith came. This is an individual incident still with the fig tree. Pistuo, that's used there in verse 22, right? So I'm going to put an X in pistuo. I'm going to put an X in say. Jesus said, if you say to this mountain, be thou removed. All right? In the quantity column, he said, if you don't doubt, if you doubt not. So I'm going to put doubt not in the quantity column, right? There's no action here in this action column. And then in the mental column, is there anything in here, I think, No, I don't see anything in here in the mental column in this. So that's that one. Okay, so this again, all the traits are there. So this meaning of pistis must be belief or believing. Now, just like we saw that the opposite of pistis was apistia or apathia, here it also says that doubt is an opposite. Doubt not. So we wanted to do a thorough word study on pistis and pistuo. We would also need to do doubt. Okay? See, this is how you expand your understanding. And as you do so, you will gain more and more wisdom in the Word. That's how it works. See? So we'd have to look at the word doubt to be comprehensive. And see, it's important to go where the evidence points us. It's working the Word like Jesus worked it. Because do you think Jesus knew how to study the Word? Of course he did. Except, he didn't have the tools we have today, like concordances and computer programs, etc. But I bet he'd memorized the whole Old Testament. And Jesus explained how to do this very method in John chapter 5. Take a look at John chapter 5, verse 39. John chapter 5, verse 39. Jesus said, "Search the Scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life, and there they which testify of me." The word search is erunao, and it means to track something like a hunter. Today we use hunting dogs, and they put their noses to the ground, and they follow their quarry wherever it went. And if their quarry stopped along the way to do something, they sniff all around it. Of course, those dogs are so matter-of-fact. Ho hum. I think maybe the quarry did this. No, sirree. Those hunting dogs are excited. All 5 doggy senses are riveted. Ruff. Yes, those hunting dogs are excited. Similarly, we need to get our noses in the book and sniff around every usage, looking for clues. And also, we need to be alert and involved and thorough, resisting the temptation to take shortcuts or to assume things. See, the prophets were also experts at searching the Word. Look at 1 Peter chapter 1. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 10. Of which salvation the prophets have inquired, exzetao, scrutinized, and searched diligently, ex-erunao. That's erunao with a prefix. Ex-erunao, deeply searched throughout. Who prophesied of the grace that should come to you, searching, erunao, what matter of time the Spirit which was in them did signify of Christ. The of Christ should go with signify. If you look up del lao in Bowers, you'll see that. So that's signify. And when the word is in the genitive case with signify, it is what it signifies of. Signify of Christ. When it testified beforehand of the sufferings of Christ and the glory that should follow. So those prophets knew how to work the Word. They searched it like they hunted it, like a hunter would. So you can't be lackadaisical about this process. So I advise, don't do it if you're tired, or if you're angry, or if you're agitated, because it demands our best thinking. If you're angry or agitated, read the Psalms. Okay? Because they will identify with the emotion that you feel. That's what the Psalms are good for. But, of course, we're not angry or agitated all the time, so hopefully you calm down so you can work the Word. But it demands our best thinking. So far, all the occurrences of pistis have been in this same category, having the same contextual inference. And that's what these columns are. They help us ferret out the contextual inference that is in the paragraph surrounding each occurrence of the words. See, we did a grid. I like to use an Excel spreadsheet, and I label each row and column and all of that. So now we come to the last occurrence of pistis in the book of Matthew. Look at Matthew 23. Matthew 23, verse 23. It says, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and pistis. These ought ye to have done, and to not leave the other undone." Now, this is different. Okay. Matthew 23:23. Is it before faith came? Yes. Is it regarding an individual need or event? No. Is the word pistuo used with it in the context? No. Is there anything dealing with speech that they spoke into being when they believed? No. Is there any quantity in Matthew 23:23? No. Is there any action that they took? No. Do you know what we have just done? This is the indication that we've run into a different meaning. It does not fit the pattern of the contextual inference of all the other meanings. And see, this is how you certify that you're dealing with a different meaning. It's not like we go to the lexicon and we pick out our favorite meaning that fits with our theology and then we defend it against all comers. No. We do this method, the signpost method, that we do the columns and we see what the contextual inference is of the different meanings, and then that tells us which meaning to choose. And there's no guesswork, and also there's no wiggle room. You gotta do what the word says. You have to accept what the word says. And this is a different meaning. The only thing that it has in common with the other one is this is before faith came. It's Matthew in the Gospels, right? So the word faith here in Matthew 23:23 is not the same kind of faith that's in the epistles. That's a spiritual thing. See, this is lined up with judgment, mercy, matters of the law. Okay? So, in that context, I would say that this word pistis, it's not a belief in an individual thing. It is a set of beliefs. And the set of beliefs are what the Jews believed in the law administration and in the gospel administration. Okay? That's what this is. The weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith. This would be beliefs. All right? So, this is a separate meaning of the word faith. Now, just so you know, I'm taking longer than I thought I would, but that's great because I'm being more thorough and we're puzzling our way through this. But I do want to give you a couple more occurrences of this last meaning in Matthew 23:23. because we're running long tonight, but that's good. Acts 13:8. Acts 13:8. Elymas the sorcerer, for so is his name by interpretation, withstood them, seeking to turn away the deputy from the faith. All right. This is another one of these that fits with Matthew 23:23, because to turn him away from the faith. Well, what is it talking about? This Elymas the sorcerer was trying to turn the deputy away from the Christian set of beliefs. So in Matthew 23:23, there, Pistis was the set of beliefs for the fourth administration. Here in Acts 13:8, the faith is the set of beliefs for the fifth administration. All right, here's another occurrence of it. Acts 14:22. Acts 14:22. Confirming the souls of the disciples and exhorting them to continue in the faith. The faith. So what was the Apostle Paul doing there? All right. They were being exhorted to continue in the faith, the set of Christian beliefs for the fifth administration. Here's another one that fits that. Look at Luke 18:1. Luke 18:1. And he spoke a parable unto them to this end, that men ought always to pray and not faint, saying, there was in a city a judge, which feared, reverenced not God, neither regarded man. And there was a widow in that city, and she came to him, saying, avenge me of my adversary. And he would not for a while. But afterwards he said within himself, though I reverence not God, nor regard man, yet because of this widow troubling me, I'll avenge her, lest by her continually coming she weary me. And the Lord said, hear what that unjust judge said. And shall not God avenge his own elect, which cry day and night unto him, though he bear long with them? Verse 8, Luke 18:8. I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man comes, shall he find pistis on the earth? So again, Luke 18:8. This is after faith came. It's not an individual event. It's not used with pistuo. It doesn't indicate anything about speech or quantity. It's not an action. So the word pistis there in Luke 18:8 does not mean belief or believing, because none of the words there, none of the indicators are in that pattern. However, it does fit the second meaning of pistis that we've encountered, that fits the Matthew 23:23 one and the Acts chapter 13:8 and 14:22 one. This is a set of beliefs that are believed by the believers during an administration. So, Matthew 23, the administration's the fourth administration. Acts chapter 13, verse 8, and Acts 14:22 is the fifth administration. And Luke 18:8 shall, when Jesus comes again, when's that? That's in the sixth administration. Shall he find pistis on the earth? So there, that is the set of beliefs that should be believed in the sixth administration. See, and we saw that in the One Hope class. That was the new song. Okay? So, what we have found so far, and I think we're going to end up right here. what we've found so far is two different meanings for the word pistis that we've seen all the way through Matthew. And the first one is belief or believing, and that is before faith came. It is an individual event. The word pistuo shows up in the context in a lot of them. There is, in every single case, speech is associated, right? In many of the cases, action is associated. It could be something in quantity, either great or small, or none, unbelief, doubt not. And it was something mental that people persisted, they thought through, all right? But then there was the other set of circumstances where none of those things applied, except maybe, was it before faith came or after faith came? Well, Matthew 23:23, that was before faith came, but none of the other traits showed up. Acts 14 and the other one in Acts, that was after faith came. And the one in Luke 18:8, that was regarding a time after faith came. But in each of those cases, it wasn't an individual event, it was a collective set of beliefs. So there was something having to do with the individual in that sense, but it was opposite. All right? And then it depended upon the administration that it was in, what set of beliefs it was. So, what you have seen so far is the signpost method and how we can use contextual inference to tell us what a meaning of a word must be. And I underscore the word must. It's not like we go to the lexicon and we pick out our favorite meaning, the one that fits with our theology. No, you can't do that. You let the word interpret itself. No private interpretation. You let the word explain itself. And this is just what we have seen. Bless you.